Well, hello there. A lot of you have been asking about how to best go about doing Lumen and Nanite in VR in Unreal Engine 5.1. I've been playing with the GitHub version for a couple months now, trying to figure out best practices, pitfalls, things to watch out for. Thankfully, over the past couple months, a lot of the weird little workarounds that I encountered along the way to be like, oh, this doesn't want to work in this way, but I can force it to work in this way with this kind of setting have changed. And it's actually much more straightforward now. So today, I'm going to walk you through opening up the new 5.1 template available in Unreal Engine 5.1 Preview 1. Too many ones in that. And we'll just kind of go through the basic settings to just kind of have things set up at all for Lumen and Nanite. And then we'll also look at some of the adjustments we'll want to make to optimize it for lower end hardware, and then even, a couple little fun things we can do to take advantage of the full capacity of Lumen and Nanite. So hop on board. Come on, let's do this thing on this beautiful fall day.
So to start, we're just going to go ahead and open up the virtual reality template. If you want to have starter content on, you can, but you don't need to. This is going to look pretty similar to what it has in past version. And once it loads up, just to be abundantly clear here, it is not set up for Lumen and Nanite yet. This is still very much the project settings that were in 5.0 in terms of, forward rendering and being made to work with Quest and desktop. Lumen and Nanite, of course, does not work with Quest, so you have to be a little bit careful about once you do set this up for Lumen and Nanite, not trying to build this for a standalone device. So let's go ahead and just confirm. We'll look at Lumen scene and we'll see that nothing changes. And then we'll go to Nanite triangles and we'll see that nothing changes. And this is just a quick confirmation telling us that Lumen and Nanite are not active at all. We do see that we have DirectX 12 running and Shader Model 6, so that's a good start. But let's take a look at some of the other project settings that we need. And I'll try to do like a little medium post just to list all these out together. But first, yes, we want to make sure that our default RHI is set to DirectX 12, which it is, no problem. We'll also want to look for SM6 and make sure that that is checked, which it is. And we're going to want to uncheck allow static lighting. That is just going to give us a little extra bang for our buck, a little more ability to use the resources in our project. And it says that we're not going to bake any lighting. I'm on an RTX 3080 mobile today, by the way, in case you're curious. So another setting that we'll want to make sure is off, this is the most important one, is our forward shading. Lumen and Nanite do not work with forward shading, even though forward shading is the most optimized rendering pipeline for VR. So I just want to be very clear, Lumen and Nanite in VR, it's expensive. Also, you don't have to do this, but I've been doing a lot with virtual textures. And so just if you want to not have to compile shaders a ton later, and you're already planning on using virtual textures, just go ahead and hit that checkbox. Also, keep that reflection capture resolution low. I have found that that tends to be a little bit of a problem with crashing if that gets too high. And then for Lumen, we're just going to want to make sure that global illumination is set to Lumen and that our reflections are set to Lumen. Virtual shadow maps, we'll want to make sure those are enabled, which again, a lot of this stuff already is by default. The biggest thing that we needed to change was the forward rendering. But if you're in a different project, these are just kind of the checkboxes to go down. And in our VR tab here, again, just in the name of optimizing things, I would start to enable some fixed foveated rendering. I've played with the dynamic fixed one. That seems to work okay. Instant stereo was causing a problem with builds back when I was playing more with the source code. That has since been fixed. Instant stereo works fine now, which is great because that's another cost-saving measure. But yes, foveated rendering, for those who don't know, it's going to render at a higher resolution in the center of your screen and a lower resolution outside in your HMD of that sweet spot. So that's a good little cost-saving measure. And then if you would like to really enhance the quality of your Lumen, then you can certainly enable ray tracing and allow ray tracing to make Lumen look better. I do want to warn you, it can make things crash. By default, for example, I would leave ray trace shadows, ray trace skylight unchecked, and I would say be ready to uncheck use hardware ray tracing when available. Lastly, just make sure that generate mesh distance field box is checked. That's an important one. That's kind of the core of how Lumen works. And then we'll just let it restart. Now, while it's restarting, this is a great time to go and get your VR device ready if it isn't already plugged in. Of course, if your VR device isn't already plugged in and set up, then once these shaders are done compiling, we are going to have to restart the project anyway, so just be aware of that. That's nothing new. You've probably dealt with that before.
Now is as good a time as any to put on your headset. I'm using a Quest primarily because right now Oculus seems to be working the best with Lumen and Nanite in VR. That might change. If you do want to use SteamVR, I'll give you a few tips on setting that up as well later in the video. For now, go ahead and make sure that in your Oculus settings under General, you have Oculus set as active for your OpenXR runtime. If you don't, things won't work properly. If you used the OpenXR plugin before now, it's kind of been like this since 4.27, so nothing's changed there. Also, recently there was a weird hiccup going on for using the public test channel. You might need to uncheck that. Otherwise, you might be seeing a big XRS GPU debug kind of thing that's showing you both eyes. And if you try to close it, all of Oculus closes. So if you are having that issue right now, just make sure you're off the public test channel. And then once this is all working okay, you can go ahead and make sure your project restarts so that VR is detected. And once you've got your Quest headset set up, you can just go ahead and restart, get all those shaders compiling. By the way, the reason I'm tethered is not because I like being tethered, it's because AirLink sometimes just doesn't work. If I could use SteamVR reliably here, I'd probably be using Virtual Desktop. It's a good app. This video not sponsored by Virtual Desktop. So your scene opens back up, and you might be thinking, hey, Lumen Nanite, it's all enabled, right? Kind of. Technically, let's take a look. So let's go ahead and take a look at Lumen scene. Yes, it looks different. That tells us something is happening with Lumen. You kind of get a little bit of a sense of how Lumen is seeing light bouncing around the scene at the moment. If we go to Nanite, though, we'll go to Nanite triangles. You'll see nothing looks different from how it does under lit. And that's not because Nanite isn't active. It actually just means that we haven't enabled Nanite for anything. So Nanite is possible right now. It just needs to be turned on. So let's use a real simple example. Grab our static mesh cube here, find that in our browser. We'll right click it and say Nanite, hit the checkbox, and that's going to do a thing. We'll get something about lighting being rebuilt. Nah, don't worry about that. And we're going to go and say Lumen, Nanite, triangles. So haha, it's working. Let's go back to lit. Let's just try hitting play. If you got the little green headset box here, that means that VR is active. I'm going to play, and there's a very good chance it's going to crash. Let's find out if it does. Oh, I'm lucky right now. Okay, so a lot of times this does actually crash for me. And the reason is, there it is. Ha, ha, ha. The reason is that, well, I probably can tell you the exact reason, but it's basically, in my humble opinion, that the settings are too high. So as it restarts, all we're going to do is bring down the scalability settings, and we're going to change one little thing in the VR pawn that is also going to contribute to some crashing here. So under settings, we'll go under engine scalability, and we'll just crank this down to medium, and you might start to see your shaders recompile when you do this. There we go. So now I'm in scalability medium mode. Note, first thing about SteamVR, SteamVR does not like it right now with Lumen and Nanite if you are messing with the resolution scale. So under here with the engine scalability settings, even if I'm down at medium, I might need to keep that resolution scale up at 100. So note that. Also related to resolution scale. So if I find my VR pawn, just type in pawn, I'm going to open this guy up. And inside here, right at begin play, we're going to see that there is a console command setting the VR pixel density to 1.0. Now, if we are using SteamVR, we need that. That's important. Anything other than the pixel density at 1.0, just like the screen resolution at anything other than 100%, will almost definitely make SteamVR crash. However, if you're using Oculus, you're going to be able to have a much more stable experience if you start that pixel density at something besides 1.0. I find something like 0.4 is a good place to start, and then you can kind of work your way up from there. This is a console command you can enter at any time. You know, I could do it right here in the browser right there, parental console command, and we can see that, you know, in the browser right now. It's already set. We're just setting it again at begin play, but just having it here is fine. One other thing I just want to point out very quickly when it comes to stability, I find that in 5.1, the VR mode right here, this is actually very stable. Now, mind you, because I'm using Oculus right now, it's actually going to be showing me my Vive controllers, and I won't be able to move around at all, but I can look around, and if I'm, daring enough to use like my mouse and keyboard, and I'm not going to feel sick from doing this, this is certainly one way I can get around my scene and see a little bit of Luminy Nanite stuff going on. But I gotta press Shift V to get out of that. But because the controllers aren't active right now, there's a whole thing about enabling VR mode properly. Not going to work right now. I can talk more about that a different time. That involves SteamVR, etc., etc. Anyways, right now, if I go ahead and press play for going into VR mode here, because I've turned down the resolution, things do look a little bit more pixelated inside my headset. By the way, the reason I see Rift controllers is because the OpenXR visualizer just kind of picks whatever controllers it thinks are going to be most correct, and it doesn't actually figure out at the moment that I'm using Quest controllers. I could manually go in and change these, but just letting you know that that is by design. So obviously I'm too tall right now, but I can kind of teleport around and things are fine, and it's pretty stable. But even though I know Nanite's active, even though I know Lumen is technically active, we're not really taking advantage of it yet. So let's do that in a couple different ways. First of all, let's go to these point lights over here. And I could set these to movable. For now, I'm actually going to just delete them. Just, want to keep this as stable as possible. No point lights. And we're not going to want to have baked lighting. And we are also going to want to find our directional light. I mean, I could just type in light up here, or use the wonderful new light mixer, which just shows me all the lights in my scene. And I can go and just change it to movable. I mean, that's just going to help me click on it, movable. So we're not baking anything. And then just a reminder, by the way, this is over in our project settings, but if we want to, again, optimize further, we can do things like uncheck cast ray trace shadows, ray trace reflections, ray trace global illumination. That'll just give us a little bit of extra punch back. And those project settings, again, are here. So right now you'll see I've got ray trace shadows, ray trace skylight, those both unchecked. So that's the default. In any case, now if I go ahead and take my light and I rotate it around, we got some real-time shadows. Though you'll notice that if I go into Lumen Scene, we're not seeing anything because right now, because we're in medium scalability, we don't actually have our global illumination up high enough to show us Lumen. So simplest fix for that, we can go under our engine scalability settings and just bring that global illumination up to high. And now we've got Lumen active again here. And yes, so as we see, we got our directional light. And we can move it around and we see things changing. So one thing we might want to consider setting up if we're really going to take advantage of Lumen is some way to change this on the fly inside of VR, which I'd be happy to show you. In the meantime, let's go back to Nanite. And maybe a simple thing we could do is actually just try to get everything in our scene Nanite. Obviously, we don't have anything that is super heavy right now. There's not a lot of reason to necessarily have Nanite on right now. But, maybe we could start with like the weapons here. Something I'll tell you, just based on the last time I did a build, these skeletal mesh pistols, by the way, don't seem to build, or they don't seem to show up in a build. So it's pretty simple to get these to work in a build. I just need to go and replace that skeletal mesh weapon with a static mesh one. And funnily enough, I can just click on that pistol and go to actor, and I can say convert that pistol to a static mesh. We'll just put it in meshes. We'll call it SM pistol for static mesh pistol. We'll save that out. So that's there now. We'll right click and do Nanite. In fact, you know what we can do in just one fell swoop? Let's go into our content folder and just tell everything to be Nanite that we can. So we're going to go settings, or not settings, sorry, under filters, we'll go to static mesh. So this is all the static meshes in our content folder. Not a ton. We can just grab all of them, right click, Nanite, enable Nanite for selected, and then just do a save all.
So that just takes care of all of them. Okay, and now what we can do, get out of there. I do like these little tabs coming in and out just to have more screen real estate. That's kind of nice. Now what we can do is under our pistol, we can say edit pistol. And we can leave everything here exactly as it is, but now we can go and grab that SM pistol, and we can actually just have it selected and then say add. And if I do static mesh, it's actually going to realize that I probably want to put the thing in there that I'm just highlighting. So static mesh pistol, just leave it with that name. And then we can actually just kind of pull this up. So that's the parent one. Grab these two guys, put them in the static mesh, and then we don't even need the static mesh weapon anymore. It's not using an animation blueprint or anything like that. We just make sure that we've got all our materials set up. Yep, and we can actually just go ahead and delete that now. So we've just modified the blueprint, although I didn't play with the scale at all, so the scale's a little bit bigger. You could leave it like that, or you could just go under SM pistol and change this all to 0.5. Up to you. Okay, let's take a look at how we're doing with Nanite. So we go Nanite visualization triangles, and we say, oh, wait a minute. Huh, weird. Seems like most of the things in our scene are Nanite, but some are not. But Alex, you might say, didn't we just filter by all of our static meshes in the content folder and change them all? Are some of these things not static meshes? No, they all are. Don't worry, we ain't got any skeletal meshes left in here now. And by the way, just real quick, look, Nanite doing a thing. You see the triangles changing as you zoom in and out. This looks amazing if we bring in something like one of the Matrix City sample buildings, but that's neither here nor there. What we want to fix is the fact that these are not Nanite yet. Let's start with the ball, because this one will be the simplest. So SM ball, if we find where that is, we're going to see, oh, this is in the engine folder. This isn't actually in our content folder. So you want to be tricky about editing anything in your engine folder, because for all you know, you might not want to change these settings in your other projects, and anything you're doing in the engine folder is going to affect all of your other projects. So anything here that we might be using, such as static mesh ball, I'm just going to go and drag it up into my meshes folder, and I'm going to say copy here. Okay, so that's over in here now, and this is the one that I can enable Nanite for, and then I can click the ball, and I can right click on it, and I can say replace selected actors with the one that I just put in my actual content folder. And then over here, this is a blueprint, but we can find that there's a static mesh inside the blueprint. That's static mesh cube. It's right next to our ball there. You know, we might be using both of these just to be safe. Why not? I mean, we could grab all this geometry just in case we need it and bring all of that over into our meshes folder. Copy here. Don't move it there, or you're going to have a lot of very empty static meshes everywhere else. And you're going to enable Nanite for selected. Do a quick save all. And then we just have to go ahead and open up the blueprint here and just swap that SM cube 1 with this SM cube 1. You know, if we wanted to be proper, we could like add a little extra suffix there to say nanite or something like that. I don't know if there's a standard way to name something for having nanite right now. And the last thing we've got here is just our camera, just confirming we got nothing else left in here. Yeah, that's all fine. So the camera just has, as you might guess, a little camera mesh, and that camera mesh lives also in our editor folder. So last one, drag that into meshes, copy here, meshes, nanite enabled, and then inside our blueprint here, camera mesh, and we're just going to swap it for the new one. Compile, save all. All right, so we've taken care of nanite. Again, you know, we don't have anything super complicated in here yet. We could go into Quixel. You know, I'll let you do that. Maybe I'll throw something in at the end. We'll see. Let's do Lumen. Let's make something happen with Lumen here. So we got our Lumen scene, and we can see that as we start to move the directional light around, that's being animated. I mean, we could do a very, very simple kind of little timeline thing here, for example. Maybe we just go into our level blueprint, and we grab our directional light, and we just say, hey, every event tick, I don't know, let's just pick one axis to move this on. Oops, maybe the Z axis, sure.
So we can say event tick. For directional light, we are going to set transform or just set rotation, and we can split the structure pin here, and then we're just going to be adjusting rotation. Let's see what the smallest numbers we want this to be. 0 is fine. Yeah, we'll just start from 0 and just kind of crank that up very, very slowly. So every tick, 60, 90, whatever times per second, let's find some arbitrary amount to increase that by. Or you know what, we can just do this. We can say, turn this into a variable, promote to variable, call it our Z sun. Oh my goodness, Z sun, something like that. And every delta number of seconds will just be adding into that. Real simple stuff. So we're going to do delta seconds. Oh, let's just start simple. Let's just plug delta seconds directly into here. Clean this up a little bit. And then that's going to be set, and then that. So real simple blueprint, just updating this all the time. And let's see what that does. We can even just hit play. We don't even need to be in VR just to see what happens. We can go find our directional light. And we can see, yep, it's moving just very slowly. Oh, and these got set to 0. We probably just want to keep those what they were at. So -50, -40. And maybe we want it to go a little bit faster. So this will be -50, -40. And maybe we just multiply this by 2 or 3. So times, let's do 3 just to give us a little bit of speed here. And we'll just, we'll pop into VR this time. Okay, and yeah, here we go. I can see the sun, and we got some Lumen affecting our scene in real time. Very nice. All right, so that's shadows. We got our virtual shadow maps running if you want to see those too. Oh, there's a little crash. See, it's still unstable. It's still going to crash sometimes. Let's restart. Okay, it restarted, and it's compiling a bunch of shaders, but cool. We see the sun changing. Next thing we can do is play a little bit with glowing and actually illuminating our scene in real time, which is a really cool feature of Lumen. So why don't we go ahead into content, and we'll just create a new quick folder called materials. And in here, we're going to create a very quick emissive master material. So emissive, open this guy up, and just going to assume that you've done materials before, and our multiply is going to go into emissive color. Now we're going to have a color. Let's assume, I don't know, red or orange as a default into there, and then an amount that's going to go into there. Scalar, or sorry, not scalar. That's the kind of thing it is. Intensity into there. By default, we'll set it to 5. And we want both of these to be parameters. The second one's already a parameter. This one needs to be a parameter. And we call that color. There we go. So we'll do apply. And we'll save all. And maybe we'll just make this unlit also. And save it again. And now we can go ahead and make a few little material instances. How about an MI red, and duplicate, and an MI blue, and maybe an MI green, right? Whoops, green. And we'll go to blue, for example, and we'll make it super blue. Crank up some intensity there. Blue, 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 more and more intensity. Something like that. We'll have the green one. Green. Maybe the intensity is like 7, fine. And we'll do red. Dark red.
And let's see how high we can make the intensity go, where we can still tell that this has kind of a red origin, maybe 25. Okay, so we'll do save. So we got a few colors. Let's try dragging one onto, say, a wall, and one onto, say, oh yeah, check that out. So we already see it kind of illuminating. Let's put on a ball, nice ball there. And we have a red one. Let's put the red one right there. Can we grab this? Let's throw on, let's make this movable. Throw on the grab component. And let's make sure it is set to simulate physics. Physics. Generates. Simulation generates hit events. I think that's it. Okay. Do a quick save all. We're in preview mode, people. It is unstable. Let's see what this looks like in VR.
Okay. And so what we have is Lumen, and the sun is changing, and things are glowing. And we can see, even just by going over into this room, that we're actually illuminating the room. And we can take the cube, and we can go into here, into the other room. We can start to see how this cube can illuminate things, like the wall, using Lumen, right? Feels like we're about to watch a funky movie. Okay, and while we're here, let me just point out something. If I press tab, you'll notice that our spectator camera, it's not quite doing Lumen. So let me show you real quick how we can set up some parity between our spectator camera and the VR experience.
So there's a few different ways you can handle this. Probably the easiest is go under first your scene capture component 2D, and under primitive render mode, change this to primitives, because I find that for some reason when you're in legacy you're more likely to crash. For now, capture source is fine as final color LDR, but then what you can do is go into your global illumination under your post-process volume, which is just specific to this one camera view, and you can just toggle, on, make sure that's Lumen, make sure all this is doing a thing. I'll show you this in a moment with a normal post-process volume, but just kind of cranking all this down low to start is highly recommended. Maybe because this is in centimeters, maybe we do 1,000. Save all for that, and then we go and we test in VR, and we see that we are actually glowing. There's actual global illumination. We see light on things, and over there, cool. And yes, the other thing you can do, as I was about to say, was instead of doing anything over here, leave all these unchecked, and now's a great time to actually just add in a post-processing volume. I'd actually recommend doing this pretty soon, because that way you can control how intense some of the Lumen stuff is going to be happening. So let's go ahead and do place actors and do post-process volume. Just confirming there's not already one in here. No, just the one. We'll make sure this is set to infinite extents unbound, right there. And yes, as I just said, we'll want to start with just kind of turning everything down to a lower level of quality. Really, I just recommend starting all the way at the bottom with those. And yeah, for the max trace distance and the view distance, maybe start with 1,000. And when we start to play more with reflections, you can fiddle with these more as well. We haven't done reflections really yet, but yes, let's just start by cranking these down. Not high quality translucent reflections. I think we have hit lighting right now. This is good quality, but it's more expensive, so let's do surface cache. Just noting that yes, in the project settings, under reflections for Lumen, that's right there. But maybe we just need to type in Lumen. There we go, surface cache. So yeah, by default, surface cache gives the best performance, so that's good. And then down here for software ray tracing mode, global tracing. Though right now we do have use hardware ray tracing when available, so it might not even matter in this case. In any case, cranking all this down, do a quick save all. Let's get something reflective in here. Let's maybe see if we can get a chrome material. You'll notice I didn't bring any starter content into this project, but I could build one, or I could just grab it from our engine. So we'll go settings. We already have show engine content here. So we click engine and we click metal. And now we've got a nice chromy kind of metal over here. Brushed metal, here's kind of the parent one. It's under Datasmith content, that's fine. Let's just go and drag that into materials and say copy here. And let's try putting some brushed metal on the wall right here. And maybe we'll also put it on here. And maybe let's also, while we're waiting for that to load, grab a couple more balls here. Put this on one of the balls. And here we go. So you'll notice by default right now, we are getting not Lumen reflections, we are getting baked reflection probe kind of stuff. So let's check under our scalability if we have to turn up something like reflections, and yes we do. As soon as we get that over to high, these become activated, and as you might imagine, I'm going to save this first, the higher we go up here with something like reflections, the sharper that gets. We'll also see, I'll leave this as cinematic for a second. I guarantee you if I try to go into VR right now, this will crash. But you'll also see that if I go into my post-process volume and start to play with cranking up the quality of my reflections, look how sharp those can get. And mind you, if yours don't look this sharp, it's probably because you don't have use hardware ray tracing when available checked. Let's also compare hit lighting versus the surface cache. You'll notice the surface cache has some darker areas, and the hit lighting actually does a better job of getting especially things that glow in there. And I'll try, I don't think we have anything translucent, so that checkbox does nothing, just an extra cost. And you know what, I'm feeling dangerous. I've got everything at scalability medium, I've got my reflections super high. Let's see if it crashes. Let's just see.
Ooh, so far so good. Wow, not crashing yet. And
there it is. It didn't crash quite immediately, but it did crash. It's always interesting to see, is it going to crash like right away or after 5 seconds or after 10 seconds? But yeah, my reflections are way too high. We're in VR. This is the very first phase of Lumen and Nanite being supported in VR. We have to be patient, people. So in any case, there's not too many other things I want to show here. You can certainly take what I've shown you so far and go wild. A couple more things I'll add in here briefly. Will include making it so our little pop guns can fire some chrome balls or glowing balls, whichever you might prefer. And I just want to show what it's like to kind of grab things like this and move them around the scene, because that's pretty cool. Let me make sure I go and turn down my reflections to high, and make sure my post-process volume, turning all these down, that's global illumination, here's reflections, quality down, yeah. And yeah, frankly, I just wouldn't recommend trying to do mirrors in VR with Lumen reflections right now. I would do something a little bit more rough. So, because this effect is like, it looks like something's a little bit crazy, right? So what we can do, just to make this a little more tolerable, is we could open up that brushed metal material, which, oh wow, is a much more complicated material than I thought. Holy cow. Let's just try getting the material instance of it. Open that up. Okay. Yeah, let's just add a little bit of roughness. That's all I was going for here. A little bit of roughness. So yeah, so it won't be so weird when the reflection isn't quite a perfect mirror kind of thing. Okay, yeah, that's better. That looks better to me. So you get a sense there is a reflection happening, but we're not trying to get the full mirror kind of style here. It just feels a little bit more like, oh yeah, it's not trying to be a mirror. It's a little softer. And again, we can see what happens when we start to crank the quality up. We just don't want it to be that way in VR. Lumen reflections. Yeah, so just a little noisier when it's all the way down. I say just make that, a feature, not a bug. Just try to make that part of the experience. Oh, and you can also see with reflections, this is actually under global illumination, but max trace distance. You can see how we can get further and further from the camera here. So we'll do 10, 20, 50. You can see the walls kind of appearing, how far back we're willing to go. So
we want to get all the way to the back wall. So maybe that is about 1,000 or 2,000. Okay, there we go. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so we got all this. We got a couple glowing balls. We've got, oh, and we can't pick these up yet right now. So let's go ahead and we'll do all three of them at once. Grab all three of them. We'll do simulate physics. We'll do overlap events. We'll do movable. That's not actually something we type. It's movable right now. And we just want to add that grab component, which, can we not do that at the same time? I guess we have to do them each individually. Yeah, that add button goes away as soon as I grab more than one. Grab component, check. Grab component, check. Grab component, check. Okay, so that's all there. We got some glowing. We got some of this stuff going on. And that's all fine. Yeah, let's just add something to our little guns here. And if, oh yeah, if we want to go in here, we can change the material of this. Maybe we'll want to make this one our blue. You can do this on a case-by-case basis if you want to. Also, because of what it's going to look like in here, I'm actually going to turn this wall back into what it was. Or, we'll just make it that metal material. Yeah. Because I want to show how cool it looks in this dark room. I mean, you really have to experience it in VR, but how cool it looks to be in a dark room and start to have some glowing happen very organically. Also coming from these. So what we need to do is we have to find our material that I believe is under our materials, MI projectile. So we're going to change MI projectile to use one of our other materials. This is the dumb, simple way to do it. I'm just going to delete it. Delete it, how dare you? And I'm going to make everything that comes out of this the red one. Or maybe blue, whatever comes up fastest. Yeah, MI underscore. I really should have called these, glowing or emissive. What did I say? Blue? Yeah, MI blue. That's fine. So all it's going to do is replace everything that's in the projectile blueprint with this. I could just open up the projectile blueprint and change it that way. You know what? Yeah, let's not kill things. We don't have to kill things. Let's just go under FP. Is it under FP weapon? FP weapon materials, mesh textures. It's a blueprint. Where are we keeping our blueprints? Maybe under the template here. Projectile, yeah. Okay, projectile, static mesh, just right here. MI blue. And we could randomize it too. We could say, on begin play, it could maybe be this, or it could be a chrome ball or something like that. And while we're here, by the way, I would recommend to just get maximum, bang for your ball coming out of your little pop gun here. Don't destroy it. So, just let it keep doing its thing. Don't destroy. And also, take a look under projectile movement and find something like should bounce. And we could mess with the bounciness and the friction if we want to. But I would just start with, yeah, sure, it can bounce. A lot of fun things you can play with in there. Okay, let's see what our little thing here actually looks like now. And we're just going to uncheck use hardware ray tracing when available. Software ray tracing mode, again, we'll use global tracing just because it is cheaper and faster. And then under here, let's actually make sure that our shadows are also at least at medium, okay? And by the way, we just want to look at our virtual shadow map. It's kind of cool to see how everything gets calculated there. Again, kind of in an LOD sort of way. But yeah, here we go. So we've got right now shadows medium, global illumination high, reflections high. And that gives us kind of a starting point. For your pistols, by the way, for this to work, there is one other thing we have to do. We have to go to our pistol, and we're going to want to make sure that it has a collision. So why don't you just go ahead and do auto convex and apply down there. And then we'll see there. That's how we can grab it now. And by default, it's actually just going to stay up in the air when we're using it. So we actually want to make sure that it can drop
to the ground. So under the pistol, we'll do this in the blueprint. We'll just make sure that we've got movable and simulate physics and overlap, generate overlap events already on, and that's all great. Okay, so let's take a quick test. Let's get play and look around. Yep, we've got our reflections, we've got our shadow moving down. Let's go try out one of our little pop guns. Where's my controller? Right over here. Pow, pow, pow. Giving a little bit of illumination to the scene, though we could probably crank that up higher. And I can also go and do something like, if I can knock this in there, and I can see that start to, yeah. I got my nice chrome ball here, giving me some reflections. And yeah, see the reflections in there too, that's pretty cool. So with all that, let's just maybe add in a couple little finishing touches. Under editor preferences, should have done this earlier on, but I was afraid of crashing things. We can go under play, and we can just make the resolution 1920 by 1080, just so we see things a little clearer here in our viewport. And let's go ahead in our post-process volume. We could do this actually here too, since we're already in our spectator camera. And let's just add a little bit of bloom. Bloom, maybe around 2. And I'll do the same thing in our standard post-process volume. Bloom 2, there it is. Yeah, just give us a nice little glow to enhance the effect of this illuminating the scene. And also I think the blue material that our ball isn't quite bright enough to be having the effect that I want. So I'm just going to update that to be a little brighter. Am I blue? Yeah, I see why. It's because it's so dark over here. Yeah. As soon as I brighten that up a little bit, and what the heck, I'll make that 50. I just really want these little balls to glow. You could also make the balls a little bigger too. We could find our projectile, the blueprint, and we could just make it a little bigger. No, or maybe not. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, here we go. So let's try 0.2. There we go. If we wanted to roll a little bit lopsided, change one of those numbers. Why not? And let's give it a shot now. Yeah. Here we go. All right. Things are a little sharper. Oh yeah, look at that glow. This glow looks much better now with a little bit of bloom on. Go ahead, I'll just give this guy a little toss. Yeah, that looks nice. Yeah, we got a little bit of reflection over there. You can see the light changing in our reflection. There's something very satisfying about knocking these balls. Boop. Watching that go in there, start to illuminate the scene. And just kind of see what they're doing. Yeah, that's some fine lumen work. Then square one in. Nice. And last but not least, let's grab these guys, at least one of them. Oh yeah, that's much better. That illumination is excellent. Cool. Enjoy it with reflections over here. Nice. Okay. Yeah, and then the last thing I might consider doing, just for the purposes of this setup, is crank up my pixel density a little bit. So I could go to my pawn, and I can do that directly in the editor as well. So here's what I'll do, for example. Here we're gonna end this by crashing it. So let's start with our pixel density at 0.5. So it'll be a little bit better to start, right? And I could maybe even crank up my my screen resolution a little bit here too. We'll start with 50. Well, no, we'll do the screen resolution at 75, and then start to crank up some of the other elements here. Maybe the anti-aliasing can go up to medium, and these can all be set through CVARs as well. But just for the purposes of what we're doing in editor, we're gonna start here and take a look.
I'm gonna say, oh yeah, that looks nice. That looks really cool. And then what I could do is I could start to type in something like VR pixel density and then try 0.6. And I say, oh, yep, it looks even better. It looks even better now. And then I can do the same thing. I can do 0.7. And I say, oh, wow, super sharp, super good. Looking great. Look at the level of detail we've got going on in here. And now we're gonna try 0.9. And even sharper, even better. Looking great. Let's check in with our spectator cam, see how that's doing. Spectator cam, looking good. How's it looking in here? Yeah. Very nice. Okay. And let's go one higher. I'm literally just seeing if we can crash it. 1 is good. Let's try 1.2. Ooh, sharp. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this looks excellent now. So clear. And then, we could start to go into other things here as well. Like we could do Lumen visualize 1. And now I'm actually in VR looking at the Lumen scene, which is kind of cool. You see what Lumen sees. And I can just turn that back to 0. And we finally crashed it. Okay. All right, everyone. We're just going to leave it frozen on here. I hope this was useful. The goal of this was really just to be like, hey, 5.1 is out. We're all on the same baseline preview. In the current state of this preview 1, let's see some of the settings we can do to start to get Lumen and Nanite active in VR. Obviously, there's plenty of room for improvement in how this can become less buggy, more stable, but it's very cool to see that it's possible. And I hope you all take the settings that I've given you here and start to play with them more. Maybe you find better settings. If you do, let me know in the comments. And I will hopefully be back with another video where I say, hey, here's the updated better settings that me and the community found. Anyways, have a great rest of your day. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.